that we want to talk about when you're listening to your current customers is the risks. What if they don't listen to current customers and really operationalize goodness in that way?
Yeah, before we just jump to the obvious risk, kind of one of the biggest thoughts I had is if I'm not listening, if I'm not staying in that pursuit of the customer, somebody's pursuing my customer. And somebody's listening to their complaint. Somebody's listening to it. Or quite frankly, if they're not listening, they're actively telling somebody. And in any relationship, and again, we're talking about business, but think about
my lighting is very interesting tonight.
You look very cozy. Justin looks like it definitely a dad to be.
Any day.
Yeah.
Literally any day? Like, are we that close?
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. Ezra was born essentially tomorrow. So she's on track to any day.
Wow, that's great.
Hey, Jessica, can you hear us okay?
I'm sorry. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful.
Cool. Cool. Well, you want to get started? Cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody for hopping on. We have a topic tonight, self-awareness in leadership and business. We'll kind of build it out together. I have been off for a couple of weeks, just travel with work. My new job is crazy, so I'm glad to be in the saddle. And frankly, the topic tonight is kind of timely for me, so that's good. But let's definitely open in prayer and just ask the Lord to bless it. Jordan, you want to go?
Sure. Father God, we're just so grateful for tonight. God, thank you for the opportunity to come together and to learn from everybody, to listen to what's going on everybody's heart, God, and really just minister to each other. God, I just pray, Lord, that you soften each of our hearts to receive that which you want to speak through us, God. And just, I pray over the seeds that are sown tonight, Lord, that rebuke the enemy that wants to steal those seeds, God. And I just pray, Lord, that they land on good soil and they bear fruit 100 times over. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Awesome. Well, awesome. So, Jessica, have you been with us before? Sorry for not knowing that I've been out for a couple of weeks.
No, this is actually my first day in this group. My husband couldn't join. He's still at work, so we're going to do it together, but my first time here.
Okay, cool. Well, great to meet you. And yeah, anything you want to share just about yourself and your husband? Kind of why you thought about joining and kind of what you guys do?
Sure. So I am an office administrator. I've worked in the accounts payable and receivable departments. Actually a manager now, but we've been working for IES for the past 10 years. And so currently my husband is a electrical foreman. We recently sold our home. So we've been having that stir up of wanting to start business. What direction do we move in? Of course, now we have the seeds from selling our home. So in that talk is how I found this group. And so we're just kind of wanting to hear from God what it is that we're supposed to do next. So that's what brought us here.
Very cool. Well, that's great. Yeah, a lot of people who are interested in entrepreneurship, kind of like tend to find the group. So that's great. That's really, really cool. Well, I think I'm going to just dive into the topic tonight and kind of get started from there. The way we do this is very discussion oriented. So Jordan's going to read some verses first to kind of give us some scriptural foundation. But we thought about covering, the topic of emotional intelligence, which is also called EQ, is one of the characteristics that really makes people successful in modern business, whether that be entrepreneurship or any other aspect of business. So self-awareness is part of emotional intelligence. And so we're going to try to kind of unpack a little bit of that tonight together and kind of help us think through that, where are our strengths, and maybe that'll help you as you think about business, where are your strengths, your husband's strengths, where are the strengths of other people in your circle. And this is for all of us. How do we resolve some of those conflicts that happen too within that process? So, and then also kind of like the internal part of self-management. So we'll kind of walk through that. But Jordan, do you want to kind of unpack some of the scriptures here?
Yeah, I closed them out, so I'm pulling them back up.
Yep. Sorry to throw that on you.
No problem. All right, so Galatians 6:4. That's the first one, right?
You can go that one first. Do that one first.
All right, cool. That's the one I pulled up first.
Okay, good.
It says, pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else.
Cool.
Let's see. We've read a different version of that. It's pretty much the same thing. You can get the gist from that. 1 Timothy 4:16. Okay. It says, keep a close watch. So 1 Timothy 4:16, keep a close watch on how you live and on your teaching. Stay true to what is right for the sake of your own salvation and the salvation of those who hear you. The one we read earlier was not quite as, what version was that? Do you remember?
Galatians 6:4 is the reference, but I'm not sure about the version.
Okay. Okay, here's the other version of this for 1 Timothy 4:16. It says, pay close attention to yourself and your teaching. Continue in these things. For doing this, you will save both yourself and your hearers. Proverbs 14:8. Proverbs 14:8 says, it is the wisdom of the clever to understand where they go, but the folly of fools misleads.
I like the other version better.
What was the other version?
I don't know the one you read before during our prep. I like it better.
The prudent understand where they're going, but fools deceive themselves. I think that's what I read earlier. Psalms 141:5. This is your verse. Do you know this one memorized?
Yeah, let a righteous man strike me. It is a kindness. So basically let people correct me. Like I want to make sure I'm open to correction.
It says, the full verse says, let the godly strike me. It will be a kindness. If they correct me, it is soothing medicine. Don't let me refuse it.
Good.
What scripture was that?
Psalms 141:5. I'm reading all these out of NLT or NASB, New American Standard.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So that's the basic idea. So talking about self-awareness in relationship dynamics, we can start thinking about, using the strengths of others. So you know, in, you know, as I look at, you know, the things that I see in other people, for example, I know that Dennis brings a lot of knowledge about operational processes, right? And so during my job search, he gave me some great tips about leveraging some special LinkedIn techniques during the job search, right? That were helpful and that I've actually passed along to others. So how do I use the strength of Dennis instead of necessarily, I don't have to, just because I don't have a certain strength, doesn't mean that there isn't somebody who does, that I can partner with, and you know, we can help one another. Iron sharpens iron, and all of the above. So anyway, what are some ways that we can really use the strengths of others in our businesses and in our careers? And have you done that? It could be also, what's an example of a time that you leverage somebody's strength?
Yeah, successes or failures. It's all helpful.
Well, I can say in my business, so Jessica, you probably don't know what I do, but I work in claims. So I do claims processing for extended warranties on vehicles. So we've got a number of different people from different manufacturers. So everybody has kind of like their specialty. And so oftentimes we'll get a situation where we lean on those specialists to, you know, lend us obviously their expertise. So, you know, we got some Ford guys, we have Chevy guys, we got Honda. And so oftentimes we get in those conversations, that even my supervisors or bosses, because obviously they're limited, they also have to lean on those technicians just because of the experience. And so and I do that every day. That's something that we constantly do. We constantly learn from each other.
Justin, how would it negatively affect you if you did not receive? So if you were calling one of these Honda guys, or they were trying to provide insights and you did not receive it, or just weren't even hearing it, how would it affect you? And then how would it affect the person down the line?
Well, first of all, my job is to gain as much information as possible, as quick as possible. So for me to not receive that information is for me to not do my job. And obviously me not doing my job, I would not have one. But not only that, but since I'm not doing my job correctly, I then cause the company to lose money, and then obviously looks bad on the department, looks bad on my supervisor. And so that's just part of my job title, is to take all that information, receive it, and then process it as fast as possible.
Have you ever received information and then utilized it? I'm just going down a rabbit hole just for fun. Utilized it, and then maybe the information was inaccurate, or you should have not valued it as much as you did. It makes sense.
The only time that would ever happen is if I know for a fact that information is false based off of my past experience. So if somebody were to say something like, in my expertise field is like Hondas and Nissans, if somebody told me something completely far-fetched, oh, you know what? There's a something that I had, somebody had said that there's only this one way to do things. And I said, that's incorrect. I know for a fact that, you know, this is how it is done. I can look up this part number. Here's a part number. This is how you do it. So you need to go back and figure out what your technician's doing, because he's not doing his job. And so that's really the only time that would ever happen. Otherwise, if that's not my level of expertise, then obviously I would take it to heart, so to speak, until proven otherwise. And then obviously if somebody proves that information is incorrect, then I'll know from then on. But that's constant. That's every day. I mean, it's just sit there and processing what's correct, what's false, what's good information, bad information, and you just create a database. And that's what we do most of the time is we create these databases for everybody to, collectively learn from.
I'll kind of jump in with something. I find that I adapt to the people around me, and I naturally and almost transparently use them if they're good at something. So I'll give you an example. I talked to Megan at work, and I kind of take her advice because she has good leadership skills and she has a good sense of the team. And so I like to hear from her. I'm a sales manager, by the way. So I like to hear from her opinion on things, right? So I will go to her for relationship dynamics, team temperature, and overall leadership. Also, I've asked her specifically to tell me what I'm missing and what I'm messing up. Okay. Number one, I go to Nick because Nick is very knowledgeable. He's very open. He's very helpful. He likes to help people. He's a nice person, but he's super knowledgeable. He's like that specialist that Dustin was talking about. So I naturally find that I'm going to Nick. I have worked with people in the past who I can sense that they might have a certain amount of talent, but that they are not very healthy. And what that unhealthiness means is that they might not be able to take outside ideas and things of that nature. And so those people hinder the business. And I struggle to deal with them greatly. Okay. So I think using the strengths of others to me is a transparent, human psychological adaptive thing that happens automatically for me, for Brian. Okay. And I'm curious if you guys agree, you tend to lean on the experts or someone who's highly trusted in a certain area, right? I'll give you a good and a bad example from my family. If we ask my younger daughter to clean her room, it's probably already clean. No kidding. It's already clean. If we ask my older daughter, we might have to ask her a few times and kind of hound her a little bit. And she has other gifts. So it's not like she doesn't, she does. She has a very creative, amazing person. But anyway, so it's like you kind of like, at least I psychologically adapt to sort of like, I don't know what all the categories are, and you guys may have an opinion about this, but things like knowledge, competence, trustworthiness. And then maybe there's another one. Okay, I'm thinking about this on the spot here. But for me, I leverage strengths of others automatically, and I kind of like, I try to like de-risk myself from people that don't follow up or people that are walking wounded. Like I've worked with people before that are walking wounded. You can't even talk to them. They're like a pincushion. You can't even correct them. It's hard. They have enough talent where it's not like they should go find another job, but you have to be, it's like kid gloves, you know what I mean? And so anyway, that's my perspective is to boil all of those comments down. I find that I personally tend to lean on those that are trusted and reliable and knowledgeable. And I tend to fill the gaps for people who are weaker because maybe they're a broken person. They can't take correction, they can't take feedback, or they're not responsible or whatever, all kinds of different things. Doesn't mean I don't like them, but I can't, I have to account for the fact that they maybe are a certain way. So anyway, that's my point.
My question is, and I've had past experience on this, is there a time where leaning on the expert too much has hindered your personal growth or your personal ability in leadership?
Gosh, see, that's actually a great question for me because this is a topic of self-awareness tonight. So I may or may not be self-aware in that question. So the question that Dustin had for me, but it could be for anybody on the phone, by the way. Okay. So just everybody take the same question. Okay. Have we ever leaned on someone in business and career so much that it hindered our own growth? Does anybody have a comment on that?
I think it happens a lot in relationships where you'll see a spouse or somebody will just completely rely on the other person to do something. And that's just one example. But I know that for me, Dustin, again, we've talked about this before. I'm an Enneagram 8. And so for me, whenever I receive information, the first thought that goes through my mind is not, is this information any good? Is it valid? Is it trustworthy or anything like that? My first thought that goes through my mind always, every time, without even thinking about it, is this person for me or against me? That is always the first thought. I don't even, and it's subconscious. And if I feel like the person is not for me, even if the information is 100% valid, I will negate the information. Doesn't mean, now for me, I have to be self-aware.
That's hilarious. That's great. I love knowing that about you.
I have to be self-aware, and I catch myself that this person is not for me, but this information is true. And so then I have to then go, validate the information. And then irregardless if this person's for me or against me, the information's still true, And so that's just
super helpful. If you don't mind, I'm going to grab that.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be necessarily about, something very proprietary about you, but how do we boil that down? Because it helped me. Did it help anybody else?
It's my way. Again, it's a weakness of mine that I'm self-aware about.
I know that you're laughing about it, so that means you're getting healthy, or at least you're aware of it. That's nice.
But it's so funny. It's subconscious, where in the moment I catch myself, even if I'm the one who instigated the conversation. If I was like, "Hey, Dennis, can you help me with this?" And then all of a sudden, if I subconsciously feel like Dennis is not for me, even though I instigated the need for assistance, I will negate everything Dennis is about to tell me. And it's just, I have to be self-aware in that model, and then I'll have to check myself, or I'll have to just flat out, "Hey, Dennis, I just need to," and sometimes it's awkward because I'll just be, "Hey, man, are you for me in this moment? Are you on my team?" Okay, cool. Okay. And I just have to do it. Otherwise we're not getting anywhere.
Well, I had a conflict at work today, a couple hours ago, and it really hurts right now in this second, because I had a person that I don't really know if they're against me necessarily, but they're very unhealthy. And I kind of was working for them. I helped them, and they don't recognize that I helped them. It's so weird. It's the weirdest thing, and it's unfortunate. But I also want to be compassionate because I've probably done that, or maybe I've done that. You know what I mean? So I try to always think maybe I've done that. So I try to give somebody else mercy. So I am going to schedule. I've decided based on tonight's call already. So this is helping me. I've decided to have a call with them and kind of walk through it and just find out, how that make you feel? You know what I mean? Just ask questions about it and just let them know that I'm for them. You know what I mean? Because I truly am. And Jordan knows this. And actually, you guys who know me kind of know that's my personality too. But maybe they didn't know that when I was trying to help, it's not because you're stupid that I chimed in. You know what I mean? It's not that you're not smart. It's that I saw a gap and I felt it was my duty, as the manager, to help out. And so it doesn't mean I don't think you're awesome. You know what I mean? And so I think I'll just cover that with the person, and then I'll kind of like, and I'll go do that prayerfully, so that my heart is much better just from saying that, and just from hearing Jordan talk, to be honest, in the prayer tonight. But I think it'll be very helpful. So I think this is what we can do is like, the thing is like remember, this is all about relationship dynamics. And this is what you got to be careful too, Jessica, when you start thinking about business, because you're going to need to have people probably, you may have a situation where you eventually have to have people that you hire, and maybe originally you can do it yourselves, and maybe that's fine for a little while. And that's great because you and your husband know each other's strengths. And just like my wife and I know each other's strengths, they're very, very different. And so it's nice. It's a really nice, clear separation. You know what I mean? Maybe you guys already have those too, but eventually you'll have to start thinking about if we hire or if we have to partner with someone, what are their strengths? And also navigating that interpersonal conflict is going to be just something that happens. But if we can be self-aware, especially if we lead with kindness, that goes a long way through some of that stuff. So anyway, it's interesting. What have you guys thought at all about the kind of business, like even a little bit?
We have thought, we've thought of going into real estate, and I know, crazy market in Dallas and all, which is how we sold our house and things like that. But we've thought about real estate. We've thought of moving completely different on a side of like opening coffee shops type of side. So we're just kind of we're at the drawing board with ideas, and that's where we find ourselves. So we're really at the drawing board, but I mean, really venturing into anything that will profit us and make us well. My husband and I we've worked together for the past 10 years, so we've been in the
That's
management
amazing.
role, and we work for the same company and things like that. So I think that's, like you said, we discovered our strengths. And he was a project manager for a cable division, so I worked alongside him and the hiring and the firing and all of that. So it's just interesting, but we're excited. And I was hoping to see if any in the group were into real estate or anything, and and asking questions about that and things like that. But I guess I don't know everyone in the group and what.
Not tonight. We don't right now. I don't think we have anybody active. We have in the past. Michael Lansford, a long time ago, was a member. He's big into real estate. I think I would recommend him. I could probably give you his email.
Oh, that would be so.
Oops, sorry.
Or Jordan, do you have his email?
Well, I do. We both do. I was just gonna say
Okay.
Daniel Rade as well.
Who is that one?
He does real estate as well. I saw him
Okay.
the other day at church. So
Okay, cool. We will. Yeah, I can't find it right now. We'll find it. We'll find it for you. And he's on Facebook too, actually. So Michael Lansford is his name. But yeah, we'll just remind us. We'll get it to you. But
Awesome.
that
Thank
would
you.
be great.
So
Sure.
we're kind of still at the drawing board, just seeing what's out there, but we have the heart for it. So we're just waiting for God's leads here.
Totally. All right. Well, in the process of self-awareness in our relationship dynamics, we kind of came up with this idea here, being able to receive feedback, even negative feedback. Who has a story or an example of this that you might want to share?
Well, I don't necessarily have a story and example, but this is actually one of the best management principles out there, specifically known in the startup world. And the management principle says fail fast, right? The first kind of, well, when you hear it, it sounds stupid. Like, first of all, why would you fail? And second is that if you fail, why would you fail fast? But the reality is that this is the super important principle. The fail part goes for you only stretch the envelope. You only kind of stretching yourself and testing the limits and going for the new horizon when you're failing. So if you're not failing, it means that you're just basically resting on your achievements and you're going nowhere. And the fast portion actually goes for failing itself is not great, but learning from failing. So basically, once you fail, you find a way that doesn't work. And it allows you to learn how things work and do it again, now better, and kind of like stretch them a little bit further, and then you're going to fail again, but on the next horizon, and so on and so forth. And so the fast portion stands for get feedback fast, learn from it, and try again. Get feedback fast, learn from it, and try again. And if you kind of look for the most successful startups, that's exactly what we do. So there are almost no companies in the world that became successful without failing, right? So you can look at Steve Jobs, you can look at Next, you can look at Pixar. I mean, that's all kind of companies that failed a lot, and by failing a lot, they got to where they got. So my kind of first reaction of like even negative feedback is not even negative feedback. It's most importantly negative feedback. Like negative feedback is what gets you anywhere. The positive feedback just kind of makes yourself feel good and reinforces that you're a great guy, know how to do
Wow,
things
that
right.
was
Negative feedback is where like, well, okay, so this is, I found how things don't work. I'm going to learn and I'm going to become better.
You know what? That's really going to help me tomorrow, assuming I can get this person on the phone, because we are very back to back tomorrow. But when I talk to this person, I think I need to make sure to give them some negative feedback, not just make things nice with them. Because if negative feedback is the best kind, and I'm just focused on making sure the relationship is healthy, that's not very balanced, because they're not going to be getting the best kind of feedback. So what I can do is I can try to give them love, which is my heart, but then give them something tangible that they can work on. So that helped me a lot. I know you're talking about the macro picture. I'm just saying it's also helping me on the micro.
Dennis, how's your feedback at work going?
My kind of, how should I say that, attitude is basically try to do my best, right? So I'm doing my best. I'm not regretting any single day I've spent there.
Good.
But I honestly think we're just trying to learn how to paint a masterpiece with a cheap toothbrush, right?
Yeah.
Which is possible for sure. It just not not something that you would do. Yeah, because speaking about my work, this is a separate topic, but one of the most important learnings from my work over the 9-10 months is how not to do things, right? So typically you join an organization and you come out of the organization with kind of a strong idea of like, well, okay, I've learned how to do some things. I have learned how to do them efficiently. I have learned how to do it fast. So in my particular case, the majority of learning is like, I definitely know how not to do things. There are some things that I've tried that I will never, ever try in my life. I just know they don't work, period. And this is a fantastic feedback, actually.
I tell my kids that all the time. Let me finish typing this in. Can also be live streams.
Well, I'm gonna quote Jordan real quick for your next appointment with your friend. Is that you need to start off with a conversation of letting them know, I am for you.
Okay.
But we're gonna have this conversation.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
And by the way, they might have elements where I could have done it differently. You know what I mean? And I'm open. I just, at the time, under pressure, the call was about to hang up and I had 7 minutes before we were kicked out of this deal and no one was saying anything. I either said it or we were done.
Yeah, they could be an Enneagram 8. And I'm telling you, if they're like me, if they're an Enneagram 8 like me, it doesn't matter. if they feel like you're not for them,
They should know
it
that I'm as nice to them as I am on this call.
doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
Could
If
it
I
be that this person
nice,
is very unhealthy so that they're painting me through a former boss or their dad or something?
well, they could be like, Brian's just being nice to me because he wants them to hit his quota and he's looking out for himself. It has no bearing on me. He's not really trying to help me. He just wants me to do this so that he'll get this for him. And they're painting it through that picture. And if that's the case, then it will not matter the validity
Okay.
of whatever you say. It's not gonna matter.
I struggle a lot, and one of the things that I really see in business is that the facts are important, but the health, the mental and emotional health of the individuals has such a huge impact that the facts maybe, and that kind of goes back to what you said. It's like, if I'm unhealthy in our relationship, you may be right, and I'm still going to take you down.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Like, that's interesting. This is really valuable for me. And Dennis, I agree with you. I tell my kids the same thing. Learning by the failures of others. I told my kids that I learned, plenty from my mom and dad doing things the wrong way. I've also learned from a job not too long ago that I learned many things of what not to do in that way. And so you're right. It's incredibly effective because you literally have a test lab that you didn't have to pay for, except for with your frustration and with your time. Okay, fair enough. But still, somebody else paid for a fail test. Like, you now have that forever. And you're like, that process is stupid. I kind of thought it was, but they just ran it for 4 months and showed me I was right. Or it's even worse than I thought, or not quite as bad as I thought. But yeah, you have in business, you're surrounded by test labs of all kinds if you're looking for them. And what's great is you'll have that story forever.
In my particular case, it's actually my failures. My failures, in a sense, I was told just do it. Like, we are paying you money. Like, okay, well, you guys are paying you money. I don't think it works, but I'll do it. So I did it. We got where we got. Excellent learning experience for life.
Yeah.
Is it hard for you when you're told just do it, or just shut up, or just whatever, or just don't try it, or whatever? Is it hard when you see something? Because I run into this sometimes in business where I see something, but I'm not allowed to address it. Does that drive you crazy at all? Any of you guys?
Well, so what drives me crazy is once you are told to do something, right? So you basically say, well, these are the instructions, take them. I have zero problems with that. Like, whatever the instructions are, as long as they don't breach kind of my moral standards, and they typically don't, I'm going to do whatever instructions I'm given. What drives me crazy is that when I'm given instructions, I follow them exactly they are given, and then I am told, like, you're responsible for failure. Like, no, I'm not responsible for failure. I have been given instructions. I follow them. So whoever gave me those instructions, whoever came up with this idea, it's kind of difficult when you're being told to do something and then you do it, and then you're being told that now kind of you are responsible for the result. Yeah. But it is what it is, right?
Belinda, I know
we have to bloom where we're born.
Absolutely. I know Belinda deals with a lot of customers, and I know that customers are sometimes picky about their pet care and their pet grooming and all of that. I mean, how do you process feedback?
Well, I just have to use the knowledge that I was taught from school, that this is what I was taught. And, if they would just give me the chance to trust me, that, I will do my best to make it better. Like, if a dog comes in with hot spots, like under their hair, their skin is so red,
Oh, wow.
And, and it's because they're hot and they have allergies. And, some people don't want them shaved down to the skin, but really and truly, that would be the best thing to do is just shave it down, get the hair out of the way, so the skin can heal. And, especially the ears, there's so much hair around the ears. I've been grooming this dog for probably the last 4 years, and she finally let me shave her dog down last week. She said, just shave him down because I know he's probably really hot and he's always scratching. It was a King Charles Spaniel, and they're beautiful dogs, but with this heat, I'm sure the dog was going crazy. So she said, just don't touch the tail, don't touch the ears, go ahead and shave the body. But she's never, ever shaved the body. So I did, and when she came to pick him up, she loved it.
That's a really good lesson. I mean, I think what I take from that, Belinda, is, just like in Dennis's case where, he had expertise, he had knowledge, he had a good instinct based on experience as well. So I think it's a combination. In your case, you mentioned school, but you have been doing it for a while, right? Same thing.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So you've got the experience, which is really real, and the education, which is partly real, partly, theoretical or high level, not really theoretical, but Dennis has the same situation. So I think one of the things that I learned from what Belinda said is that sometimes, and I think it speaks to me too, sometimes there's a patience. Like, for example, we had a situation where I asked for this one little feature in our CRM system. It's the smallest feature, and I didn't get it. And I'm like, they're like, yeah, I didn't make the cut for this particular release. And I'm like, you're kidding me. All you had to do is extend the field size. Literally, I just want it to be a third of a page instead of like a sixth of a page. So we're not scrolling down to review our notes. I'm like, and I'm really, really, really messed up about it. Like, it really bothers me because it's a tiny little efficiency thing that would have cost somebody no work. And I'm so confused why it didn't happen. So I think, but in Belinda's case, what she's telling us is, listen, you may have that idea and you're probably right, but people take some processing time. So in the case of Dennis, maybe like after he's gone through 3 of these, on the 4th one, they'll hesitate a little and they'll say, crap, he's been right a few times. You know what I mean? So maybe part of that is an interpersonal evolution of our relationship. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Well, she rescued a dog from the shelter, and this dog was a mess. It was an elderly dog, and so she brought it to me, and I had to shave him down, her down, because she was a mess. So that was like 2 months prior to last week. And so when she came to bring him last week, she said it made Lizzie totally act different. Before, she was just like very depressed, just didn't want to play, didn't want to move because she had all that hair on her. So when I shaved her down, it finally convinced her that that's probably going to make Chase feel a lot better if they shave all that hair down too. So she saw that I was telling the truth.
Yeah.
It's hard when people don't believe you. It's like, what can I do?
And nobody on the call does grooming, so that some of the details they won't follow, but the lesson of that is really great, right? The high level lesson that I want to take out of that. And I wrote, let me see did I capture this note here for you? What would you add to that?
Who, me?
Yeah, I added a note here for you in the notes.
Oh,
down here.
I don't see them.
Really? Am I not sure? Okay. I don't know.
You're good. She just may be watching on one of the different screens.
Okay. Well, anyway, what I said for you, I wrote this down for you. It says sometimes getting your advice / feedback received can take some time. I might also add to that time examples, right?
Yes.
So because you had to give examples, and also education. And I think that's what Dennis can do and what I can do in my situation tomorrow. And I told my wife this because my wife's all mad about it. I told her at my daughter's game, she's all mad, like, you can't let him talk, you can't let your, you're the manager. You can't. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to throw around I'm the manager. I'm not doing that. Because who knows? It may be like Jordan said, this person may just be not know me very well yet. And they may have had a bad boss in the past who wasn't for them like I am. And so I want to be like very specific in my example. And that's kind of what I'm getting from you and from Dennis, which is, and Dustin, you may have had this at work before as well, where it's like trying to get something changed over time was really difficult, but maybe you had to use education or patience or examples and you didn't get it the first time.
My big feedback from what Belinda was saying and what Dennis was saying too is oftentimes we have to stick to our guns too. We're all experts in some sort of field, and regardless of what the feedback may be, if our expertise and our gut feeling says, hey, this is the way it needs to be done, just because something ends up being decided that, a certain way doesn't mean that we have to change our perspective or our opinion, right? Just like you're going to have a conversation with another person, it doesn't mean that you have to change your perspective or your answer.
Okay.
Throughout the process. Maybe they need to change how they're perceiving your information.
Sure.
Once again, building relationships, but
yeah.
we're all experts. We need to stick to our guns, and despite what happens, just continue to steadfast.
That's great.
This week I had a customer. She had some problems in her surgery, and her sister called and wanted to know if I would take care of her dogs, because her dad had to go back to Missouri and her dogs couldn't go stay with her because her bulldogs didn't like her dogs. So, but right before she called me, I heard the Lord tell me, stand your ground. And I thought, stand my ground. That's all I kept hearing is stand your ground. So when she called and she told me the whole story and everything, she wanted to know if I would take care of the dogs for free. And I said, well, I can't do that. I mean, I'm running a business. If I did that for everybody that had something going on, I would make no money and I wouldn't make a living. I mean, this is my business. They wouldn't go to PetSmart and ask that. You wouldn't go to Petco and ask that. So, I just felt like the Lord told me, nope, you stand your ground, because I do get a lot of people that try to Jew me down. And my husband even tells me, nope, you better stand your ground. And sometimes it's hard because I want to help them, but yet I have bills too.
Yep. Gotcha.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that is really important as well. Standing your ground is really, really helpful. I would be careful about the analogy, the negotiation, that word for negotiation. So just be careful about using that word. Just say negotiating would be a better word choice for that. But yeah, I agree with the principle, which is like, listen, stand your ground. And honestly, that's kind of what Dustin said too, which is, sticking to our guns, even though, the situation may be challenging. I mean, if not, what value? And I actually used to tell my old boss in my last company this, because he would sometimes strongly disagree. And this is like a believer, this is like a really good person. And sometimes they would strongly disagree. And I would say, listen, I'm about to disagree with you. I know we see this totally different, and we're just really different personality types and different backgrounds. But if I don't tell you this, then you won't have the other perspective. You can still go your way, but I need to let you know that I don't see it this way. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what Dustin is saying as well. And what you said as well, which is standing your ground. In your case, it was based on principles, which is, you know, you need to make a living, and let's negotiate other things, not like free, right? Let's try not to go to free here. But then in Dustin's case, it's like, hey, I am an expert in a certain area. You know, I know how to do estimates and claims. I've been here for a long time. I'm an expert on this system. I'm an expert also in automotive background. And if I'm telling you this, I've really thought about it. You can still disagree, but I'm not going to change my mind because it won't help you for me to just fall over and say I'm a liar when I literally know I'm not. So good feedback.
Yeah. Do you remember the example, Howie, whenever we were discussing earlier in our prep, that I was saying, I did like a little one-liner on LinkedIn about how that oftentimes the rescuer who's coming to rescue somebody who's drowning, if something negative happens, it's generally not the sea or the pool or something that's the cause. It's the person being rescued. They're not being submissive to the person trying to help them. And until that person is submissive, then often you can't rescue them. And so what I told him is, my analogy is, sometimes you have to let that person, you have to let them go and allow their desperation to increase to where now they will accept whatever you're trying to offer them. And so just like Belinda was saying, that person may get mad and say, you know, I'm going to PetSmart. Well, go to PetSmart then. You know, go ask them to do it for free, and they're going to tell you no. And then you come back, and maybe your desperation's a little different. Your mood is going to change. You know, sometimes we have to do that in business, or, you know, in Dennis's situation, you just, hey guys, I'm telling you, it's not going to work. And when it doesn't work, don't be surprised. And then their desperation is going to increase. And then here we are. Okay, guys, are you ready to make a change? Okay.
Interesting.
I've been telling you this for 6 months. Now your desperation's finally here, and I've been doing 150% of my job, you know, but sometimes you got to step back, and it's uncomfortable.
Are you good at that? Because your personality is very dynamic and very, you know, change agent kind of oriented. Are you good at that, or is this something you've had to work on?
I'm not going to drag you, you know, so I'm not going to fight you. There's a point to where I know where the Holy Spirit will tell me, you're not leaving this person or this situation the way it is. You got to grab it and you got to go. Irrelevant, you know, but there's certain times where I'm not going to do that with you. You know, fine, I'll come back and check on you in a week. I'm still here. I'm still on your team, but I'm not going to sit here and fight you in the middle of the sea and potentially hurt myself, you know? And so I'll leave you the raft, but I'm going to go sit in the boat. Whenever you're ready, tug on the raft, you know?
Yeah, giving people, I'm not great at that. Actually, one of my greatest weaknesses in business is probably timing. And so I am also very persistent. And so that's a bad mix. It can be bad. So I'm learning only in the last 2 or 3 years to start thinking about, I could be right, but no one knows it yet. You know what I mean? And so like I have to give them some time in the raft or whatever it may be. Like Dennis's case, like they want to paint a masterpiece with a very cheap brush, and he's providing them some examples with his own sweat, unfortunately. But maybe they'll evolve to using his wisdom and experience and not just his work.
Yeah.
Over time. Just like that lady did with Belinda, right? 4 years. That's a long time. That's commendable patience.
Yes. You know, the lady that I was talking about, that in the hospital, she was in a rehab, and then they had to put her back in the hospital. Well, she, you know, considers me as a really close friend, but we never hang out together. We never talk on the phone. Yes, I groom her dogs, but she told her sister that I was a good friend, and her sister just went off like, you know, some friend you are. And I'm like, wait a minute, I am, you know, it's not, I don't want to hurt either one of them. So I just shut up. I just don't say anything because I don't like confrontations. And, you know, I haven't heard from her. You know, she was reaching out to me about praying. I've been sending her scriptures. I even bought her a Bible and I bought her another book for healing, but I still haven't heard from her. So I don't know. Might try to reach out to her tomorrow. But, you know, I just consider myself an acquaintance. I mean, it's not like we're best buds or anything. You know, she'll reach out and ask me to pray for her, and I do. So her, you know, and I don't know, I guess it just has to sit in the rest for a little while because I didn't mean no harm to them. It's just I had to stand my ground.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to move to the next topic, which is self-awareness in your internal self-management. So we've been talking about, we've been really brainstorming a host of topics around self-awareness and kind of like your relationships at work and career, and we got into personal a little bit too. So now Jordan and I just came up with 2 bullet points here. We can go in other directions, but self-awareness and self-management. I'm going to make a statement. I'm actually going to change this to strengths and weaknesses, because I'm going to make a statement that I want to see what you guys think about. Is it possible that my self-awareness is it's extremely important to know what I'm weak at, not just to know what I'm strong at? Is that possible? Is it possible that sometimes we don't like to face the fact that we have a weakness, and so we lack self-awareness because it's painful to think about what we are bad at?
I think both of those statements are true. I think they're 2 separate ones, in my opinion. You can be self-aware and choose to not. I mean, my example earlier is that I can choose to be self-aware that I understand that my initial subconscious attitude when somebody's talking to me is, are they for me or against me? And I can choose to neglect that and just go off of that, because that's the way my subconscious brain works. But I could put guardrails up there and say, hey, I'm flagging this, that this person's I'm flagging the person that they're against me, but am I flagging it because they're telling me something hard that I don't particularly like? Is that why I feel this way? And so I'm able to self-evaluate further and go down the rabbit hole. Same thing with empathy. We've talked about that before. I'm not very empathetic naturally, but I put large guardrails there on purpose to keep me empathetic so that I stay in an emotionally healthy state. So I think you can be both.
What should I take? That was a lot. What should I take from that?
Weaknesses are okay.
Weaknesses are what?
They're okay. Unattended weaknesses are not okay. Guardrails are important.
Sure.
Those are kind of the 3 bullet points I hit on.
So my biggest weakness, I told you guys a minute ago, was the lack of a sense of timing and mixed with persistence. What that means is I could actually be right. So I've got the authority of that. I've got the weight of that. I've got the conviction of that, knowing I'm right. But then no one else knows that I'm right yet. And so I start pushing, and I'm pushing through people who also have to understand the situation in order to adopt the change, right? And also I'm persistent. So it's like I lack whatever that's called. I'm going to make up a word here. I think that's called relationship timing or change management timing or something. Okay. Lack of interpersonal skills. I lack that, and I'm working on it. And the guardrails for me have been slowing down and being patient like Belinda was and like Dennis is being. I am working on that. It's a guardrail for sure, Jordan, for me. But I also feel like knowing it's a weakness means that I'm more present on calls and in meetings, and I'm more aware of myself so that I don't push forward when it's clear the crowd is not even tracking with what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And then I'll maybe take like a little side meeting and talk to them about it and see if I have, if I can get them tracking, like, you know, and it's possible I'm still wrong, you know, that's possible. But like I can go test it in a small, instead of me testing it in front of an audience. And I'm not that concerned about, I'm a little bit, what happens is if you test these things in an audience is you combat really, really bad groupthink. Really, really bad, like negative consensus, because they don't understand what you're saying, because they didn't see what you saw. And so you're going against a crowd, and you could actually kill the situation, kill the change you're trying to accomplish longer term, because now they have this group consensus that was wrong and they won't re-inspect it, right? So I've tried to learn to be present and aware. Hey, do you see how nobody knows what you're talking about right now? Probably not going to be successful. So shut up and take a side meeting. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to be self-aware because I'm terrible at this.
I was just reminded, in scripture, with the disciples, they constantly wanted Jesus to be the Messiah right now, to act in a certain way. And Jesus was comfortable saying, hey, now's not the time. It's okay. I know who I am, and I know when their time is. And quite frankly, the time is whenever God tells me the right time is, and so you can sit in it, but at the same time, whenever he was before Pilate and before the Pharisees and Sadducees, and, they're pushing for him to respond, and he's comfortable just sitting there. You can say whatever you want, whatever, and that was really kind of my thought on it too, is why. And I know for me, if I feel that way, sometimes it's, Jordan, why are you wanting to be so pushy? Are you wanting to be right? Are you wanting to assert and say, it's my way or the highway? And so I just kind of start self-reflecting down that. Why do I feel like I have to do it? Can I just sit back and let somebody make a mistake? It's okay. How does it affect me? And just ponder that and allow things to kind of happen. So.
Yeah, like a lot of this boils down to patience, and then and I think also good questions and answers, good listening can help with a lot of this too. Dennis, what about I know this is a really complex set of words here, not complex in the sense that they're hard to understand, but it's hard to know what direction to take this. But do you have any thoughts on self-awareness in self-management in the topic of your strengths and your weaknesses at work and business?
Well, so my kind of idea about that, and in general, in business, there is this, how should I say that? There is an idea that the organization should be full of like, how is called, well balanced, like all around people, right? So people who are good at this and that, and they're basically good at technical skills, and they are good at people management skills, and they are good at focusing, and they are good at collaborating. So I am a strong disbeliever is that I think that God created people different for a very good reason, and trying to be good at everything and trying to make your subordinates be good at everything is a really, really, really bad idea. And what you should be doing is kind of like taking an honest look at yourself and saying, look, I mean, there are things that I'm really good at, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to shine, I'm going to excel, I'm going to like push the horizon. And there are things that I'm really bad at. I will not even try. I will not spend kind of time trying to develop, trying to self-balance, like trying to, like, there are some things I'm not really good at, and I don't even bother to try. So I wouldn't be sitting and thinking, oh well, okay, so I have kind of out of 5 areas, maybe 3 are 8 and above, like one is at 5 and another one is 2. I will not lose my sleep thinking how I get this 2 to 3 or 4. It's 2. It's been naturally a 2, and I have to design my work to make sure that it doesn't impact my productivity in those areas where I'm 8 and 9. That's kind of my view, and this is the same goes to my subordinates, right? I'm not a big believer in being like in teams when everybody's well-rounded, like well balanced. That's some nice word that somebody came around. It just doesn't work in their life.
Super helpful. All right, the way my personality works is I'm very into fairness and justice. So my instinct is to call on, for this last point, Dustin and Jessica and Belinda. But I deciding not to do that. Just know I thought of you, and because I called on Dennis just now, and I didn't call on anybody else. I called on Dennis because something about the process of that kind of made me think about him. But I'm not going to specifically make everybody talk. So who else would like to hop in on this one? Let's take one more for this one, where strengths and weaknesses. And then we want to wrap up with a quick roundtable on the spiritual side of managing self-awareness and your internal side with the spiritual. But anybody have any final thoughts on the strengths and weaknesses part?
I'll just say something really quick. I love that Dennis brought up strengths and weaknesses, and obviously he doesn't want to upgrade his weaknesses. I completely agree with that. One thing that I've done myself is there's several things that I just do not like. I'm like Belinda. I hate confrontation. I'm not going to sit here and convince you of anything. What I've found is I lean on heavy on my strengths, but now I have, if I run into something that I'm weak at, I set up myself guardrails of where I can defer when I'm I want to say in a pickle, but when I'm stuck, or if I'm feeling where I know I'm in that situation. I think it's important that we set up these worst case scenarios or these guardrails where we can deal with those weaknesses much better. It's not that we're getting, bringing those weaknesses up. It's just that we have a better way of dealing with those weaknesses so we can concentrate on our strengths. So spending more time on those things, less time on our weaknesses makes us more productive.
I'm really resonating with that. I'm going to specifically call on Jessica and then Belinda for the last one, and then I'll open it up to one more slot after that because we have to wrap up in prayer. So I'm going to open it up to Jess and to Belinda real quick to see if they have anything and I'm going to give you some context. You can take this in any direction, okay? But I'll give you like a little bit of a guardrail because of Jordan's inspiration. But for spiritual, I think, how do we remember the topic is right up here, right? This is really like the main header. So let me highlight it for us. So self-awareness and self-management, okay? Thinking about our business, our career, our ministry. It's okay to bring in personal stuff too, because we are all connected humans. So it's okay. Even though it's a business group, we're fine with some of that. But from a spiritual perspective, how can we improve our self-awareness and our self-management? Is there something spiritually that can help us with that?
That's a question for me, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'm looking at your form here. Second, I'm switching the screens.
Sure. So basically the general idea, and seriously, you can take this in a totally different direction if you want, because again, this is just like show notes, if you want to call it that. that we come up with beforehand. But what we thought was we cover kind of like external self-awareness topics, and then we cover internal self-awareness. And we thought it made sense that because we if everybody has a relationship with God, then it would be a good idea to be thinking about the spiritual side. And if not, then of course that would be the first step for somebody to have a relationship with God. But yeah, so what's your perspective on maybe a spiritual way of thinking about self-awareness and self-management?
Can you see me here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I think on strengths and weaknesses, and just from experiences that I've had in my workplace, especially during end of month when I'm closing accounts and staying past 11, close to midnight, the frustration has come. Why didn't this person do this earlier? My frustrations start to creep up, and the next day it's like, well, tomorrow I'm going to tell them this and that, and why didn't they handle this the way? And so then I'm always reminded of speak with kindness, and we don't know what everyone else is dealing with in the personal side. So then it's like change the approach of the to ask the question, why didn't certain things get done? So or at least that's what I found myself doing these past couple of months when I have my close of the month. I always have to be navigating answers as to why certain things didn't get done. But on the spiritual side, I'm always led to pray first before speaking with the frustration, I guess, or and I think that's one of the strengths that I'm working on myself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I think on the spiritual side is always just for me to take a moment to pray before I have to confront for answers or things like that, and not speak with the frustration that I had the day prior, at midnight trying to close the accounts or whatnot.
It's good. Love it. Yeah, that's kind of the angle I was thinking of. Belinda, what about you? How would you tackle your relationship with the Lord and managing strengths and weaknesses, or just general self-management in your business?
For me, I always start with prayer. I pray at night before my dogs come in for him to help me with them, because there's some that are just very uncooperative, and you just look at the clock, and my phone's ringing off the hook, and it's like, I've got to get these dogs done. But he is just being so uncooperative. And I just, I get in a lot of anxiety because it's like crunch time here. It's going to be 2:00 and this dog still isn't groomed because he won't let me. And I won't let him go until I finish them. And I don't force them. I just let them relax, and calm down, take a chill pill or something, let them on the floor and walk around. But I pressure myself, trying to get them done within, some people think you can get them done in an hour. One person, no, you can't do that. I'm only one person and I do everything. So mine is, I fear a lot that they're going to be disappointed. And I feel like, the spiritual side, Lord is telling me, just go head on with your fear, just do it. And, I found that they're, they understand where I'm coming from because it's their dog. And I'd get afraid to tell them that I'm sorry I can't get your dog done within 3 hours, but your dog is being very uncooperative with me. So, I don't know what to do, but let him rest or let her rest for a little bit, because I see dogs as I see a person. I wouldn't like a person to get in my face, because that's basically what I'm doing. So I just have to let them relax a little bit here, a little bit later, but that takes a long time. I mean, what, you got 12 hours in the day, and I don't want to be working till 12 midnight. So that's, I just have to face my fears and my just fear of them not understanding me, that I'm trying my hardest. I don't force an animal to do anything. I don't force them. If they don't want me to touch them, then I just back off. And I've gotten to where I started telling people that, I'm not the type of person that I'm going to hold your dog down and your dog is going to let me do this. I'm not like that. That's why I went out in business for myself, because I felt like my morals and values are not about numbers. They're about customer care to your animal, because they deserve respect and care just like I do going to get my hair cut. So, but the fear of them rejecting me or not coming back, or so I just been dealing with fear. And I just feel like the Lord, I prayed, even when a dog hasn't gotten here yet, right before they come, I just pray like, Lord, please help me with this dog. Help me get this dog done in a reasonable time and help them be cooperative with me. So
It's good. Yeah, I mean, that's the solution, right? I mean, both of you mentioned prayer, right? That makes me happy. It's a business group where, it is a church business group, right? So we talk about business, we talk about career, but we talk about it in the context of our relationship with the Lord. And we need to remember that he's in business with us and he cares. He's touched by the feelings of our infirmities. He cares about us. He has been likewise tempted and without sin. He's been through all the things. We do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with us, according to Hebrews, right? But one who has been tempted in every way. And so we understand that he's been through these trials. He's had, that crushing temptation to fear. He's had all the feelings that we've had. So the fact that both of y'all engage the Lord in those work pressures is really wonderful. And it's a great way to wrap it up, because the next and the last thing is prayer. So let's dive into that. Some of you know on the Howie and Beastmode podcast, we come from a faith background. So we love business, strategy, growth, and execution, as well as career development, but we do come from a faith background. And although we don't overtly talk about that as much, we actually have something that's pretty encouraging that Beastmode shared with me today, that I thought we should just share with all of you that happens to have a faith and business aspect to it. Beastmode, what do you got?
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit in our prep about gifts. You have a particular gift that God gave you, a foresight, seeing things in advance. But some of you may have been given a gift of wisdom or knowledge, boldness, whatever it is. And oftentimes we can use those giftings outside of for